for tonight. Um, was watching Papa 1947, Gary Asher. He was a pattern maker. That was his trade until he retired several years ago. Um, Still comes up with some of that kind of thinking, thinking about processes and what to do. And he had done a bowl based on a game from when he was a kid. I don't remember the game. I remember some of the pieces, but I don't I don't know what it's called or anything like that. He called it a knucklebone. He did a knucklebone bowl, and then this was just going to be a knuckle bone. And so basically, let me start this way. Basically, it starts as a cube. Um, for his example and what I'm going to do tonight, 4-inch cube. This is some cedar, two pieces that I glued together, uh, cut it, and then after the glue was nice and dry, it's got a hole in the center, 3/4 inch hole in the center of every side. So 6 holes, they all meet in the center. Um, I was wondering if they're going to actually meet because I didn't. This is not a perfect cube. It's not, if you measure all the sides, you're not going to get exactly 4 inches all the way around. But all my holes do meet in the center somehow. I did. I'll just go ahead and show you more of the layout. You can see maybe, yeah, you can see where I did the cross there. Went corner to corner, found my centers on all 6 sides. And then I went from the edge of the hole out 3/8 of an inch. Um, that's a little bit bigger than what I want to end up with. And I'll show you more of that. In fact, you'll see it'll all start to make sense here. Took that then to the bandsaw and cut those outside corners. So I end up with the knuckle bone, the knuckle joint, or whatever you want to call that. I've already turned one, that one, because I wanted just to make sure my process was working correctly, and it is. And so to go with that, I had to turn myself a couple of centers. This is the one to go in my live center. 3/4 inch diameter here. This one is a 1 inch diameter. And that'll go against my live center and into the next one of these that I'm going to turn. And then I've also got one, switch cameras here. I've got one here in my headstock, in my chuck. This is 1 inch. This is 3/4. And then whatever size it is for the tenon, so it fits into my hornick jaws there. So like I said, I've already turned this one just to make sure the process works. Let's go ahead and we'll turn a bunch more. Um, we'll see how the time goes and
You
make
got
our
plenty of time. You got
yeah.
plenty of
We'll
time, Doug.
we'll make a decision on how much of this we're going to do um, based on how the time goes. There we go. Turn it by hand, making sure everything's clear. Like I said, this was all done by bandsaw, and I'm one of those. I don't turn my tension off of my bandsaw because I use a Shopsmith bandsaw, and I have to take the covers off of it completely to get to the tensioner. So I don't, and I've never had a problem with that. My problems come from other things. We'll just leave it at that. Cheap blades have gotten cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So I'm hand turning it. I'm clear of everything. I'm going to start at 200 RPMs and then I'll turn it up as I know everything is good to go. Here's up to 1400. Got my face shield on. Rings are off. And before anybody asks, no, I've never found that other ring. Just taking light cuts here. This is one of those things there really is no reason to get in a big hurry. My little handmade bushing here gives me the diameter I'm turning down to. I had one turned out of cedar, and on that one that I turned, I found that something was awry, and so I abandoned that one and quickly did myself a new one. And this one automatically, I mean, it just already is so much better than that first one. And I'm going down to my cut. Um, it's going to leave a little piece that I'm going to have to do something else with, but I'll show you that when we get there. Anybody remember this game when they were a kid?
No, I don't.
No, I assumed it was
I don't
something that
remember
was,
ever hearing of it.
yeah, I assumed it was something before my time. Um,
Yeah, it
you know,
was Jack's. We used to play it in the snow.
well, yeah, there was jacks, but
No,
that
it's
had
not Jack's. It's not
jacks had
Jack's.
four spears or 4 points, and then the opposite, the two outer ends had balls on the end of them, as I remember it. Um, and this is, I don't know. I remember something similar to this that like had some sticks that you'd build with it. I'm gonna turn that speed. I've turned the speed down. I'm gonna turn my dust collector on. Does that sound okay still, Dane?
Yeah, yeah, you're doing fine.
Okay.
Looks good.
I'm never sure about that dust collector.
Yeah, yeah, it's Zoom's taking care of it, so you're good.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's being noise canceled.
good. And it's doing a job too. I'm not getting dust falling or flying up in the air. It's all going my you can't see it. It's just off camera is where my collector tube is. Just this quick. Of course, part of this is cedar. You guys who have turned cedar, you understand. Or if we want to do it, call it correctly, it's juniper. Um, it turns very easily. It's a soft wood. It sands very easily as well. That's sanded up to 220 at this point. So then I just have to pull out that little bushing piece, move it to the next one. Unfortunately, the tailstock will push it right in for me. I don't have to worry about it getting perfectly centered or perfectly in there. Here we go. This is the one that was off center because of my bad original bushing. Again, make sure I'm clear. Turn my speed back up. Now you could take your time and get everything perfectly even and square from the very beginning. Um, Gary seemed to indicate that it really wasn't that critical. And I'm tend to be in agreement with him at least to this point. If I was going to do something else with it, I might want to be a little more precise. Some of you may be wondering, this is my typical 1/2 inch bowl gouge. A little more tension on it. trying to get it basically straight across here. It doesn't have to be exactly square or doesn't have to be exactly straight, flat. I told you I drilled these 3/4 of an inch, and then I gave myself another 1/4 inch all the way around. So that made for a 1 inch outside. I'm
Hey,
coming
Doug,
up. Yeah,
can you touch on the dimensions of the overall project for the group?
overall,
Yeah, you started with a 4x4, and then you drilled it with what size, and what was your
yeah,
I know the offset was 3/8.
drilled it with a 3/4 inch
Okay.
drill bit. I used a 3/4 inch paddle bit because my paddle bits are a good bit longer than my Fastener bits. Fastener bit would work perfectly. Um, there again, just whether it's paddle bit or Fastener, I agree with what was said. That center point on both of those drill bit styles is what gives it that beginning guidance. Uh, if you don't have that, you have nothing guiding that drill bit. Um, I understand the whole issue of taking pressure off of your machine, whether it be a drill press or your lathe, but I, in the long run, I think you're much better off not drilling a pilot hole. Go straight to whatever. In fact, I had a 2 1/4 inch Fastener bit in my hand. If we needed to, I was going to show that point because having that bigger bit in my hand, I could show you that point pretty easy. But anyway, yeah, a 3/4 inch hole. And then to lay out my lines, I simply added another 1/4, which would be a 1/8 on either side of that 3/4. So that gave me a 1 inch, made for this to be 1 inch here that I wanted to use. And then actually in my layout lines, I will turn that. I know y'all aren't hearing it so bad, but it's driving me nuts. That dust collector. Um, I gave myself outside of the 1 inch circle that I wanted to turn down to, I gave myself another 1/8 of an inch, which is actually a 1/4 to lay out so that I had something to come down to. That's not long enough. There we go. All right, there's 3 of them turned. And if you find that you're not getting enough grip just by squeezing it between the wood, you can put some gripper in here, like the rubberized shelf paper, and that works really well. In fact, this doesn't have to be down to 1 inch here. That can be left larger, and then put your non-slip shelf liner in there, and you'd be that'd work really good for you. But I'm using this line here and here as my stop. I'm turning down to that, and yeah, you can see it right there. Right here, it's leaving a square edge, and I'll show you how we're going to deal with that here in just a minute. So we're clear. Can turn it on. Speed my lathe back up, back to 1400. A lot of rinse and repeat with this little project. It's not a big deal, but a lot of repeating yourself. If this was a super hard wood, like um, Oh goodness, all kinds of things. It could be old pecan. It could be any of those Southwest woods. Mesquite would be a one. Um, you did it out of ebony. Anything where it's real hard, it would get a little. You might want to cut it a little closer. You didn't have quite as much turning to do. Just turning up on edge so that I can get right into that corner as far as possible. Back down on my speed. I'm going to, I'm not being critical on sanding speed, but I'm going 500, 600, something like that, so that my sandpaper can do its job and I'm not having to stand there quite as long. Or cedar does sand awfully easy. Getting there, getting there. Always amazing to me how fast some woods sand. Some woods you sit there and sit there and sit there sanding, and others you just hit them a few times and they're good to go. Got the first 4 done, which is surprising to me. I don't know why it surprises me that it turned that quickly and easily, but it did. It's cedar. Creak, creak, creak. This one is tight. This one is not. There we go.
Getting through it.
Oh yeah. Popped right there as I started to go around. Typical of cedar. Has a little chip out right there.
Hey,
I
Doug,
would
is there any? So we have a question. Is there any thoughts on whether you could turn, both sides at the same time, or to run and use the skewer to badon or parting tool to do the shaping instead of a spindle gouge, or is it just preference?
um you could turn both sides at the same time. I kind of I toyed with that thought myself. Um, especially if you're used to turning over and the only problem, well, it's not really a problem. You would need to turn your tool rest. I've got this in as close as I can to this one side. Um, Also, you're limiting yourself a little bit with your chuck and all of that. But yeah, you could, um, if you feel comfortable doing that, you could use a small skew or a badan, even a parting tool to do this. Um, I'm using a bowl gouge because that's kind of my tool of comfort.
Plus, we get a little bit more turning out of you.
Why, sure. In fact, that on this last one, let's do a little experiment. But you'll notice I've got my bevel running on the plane that I want to cut in. And I've got the edge of my blade turned up on edge, so it's cutting like a knife, cutting like a skew does. Same one here. I'm taking my bevel straight down this line so that I can get in here as close as possible. And I've got the flute closed, and then come back this way. Same thing, close that flute, get right in the corner, even with a bowl gouge. dust collector on again. Kind of conscious of the dust collector because
Oh, it's fine.
it. Well, I'm conscious of turning it on partly because I don't have my air cleaner on. Um, it's got a little different noise that does come through the microphone just a little bit, but it's more of a annoying kind of a thing. Now, when I use the shop vac, that came through loud and clear, which just reminded me I did not turn my air compressor off. So if it were to come on, you could hear it, I promise. You can hear it in the next county. Oh yeah. I'm going 80, 120, 180, 220. Russ Fairfield he always made a strong point about, that whole thing just popped. That's cedar. That's cedar. But I've got a little Parfex 3408 right here that will do the job. Russ was real big on you go up half the value and you don't do all your work with your most aggressive grit, and then your others will be much easier, much simpler, much quicker, and do a better job. And since I started doing that, that has worked very well for me. Wow. Stuck to my hand more than it stuck to the wood. Get a
The
little
cedar
drop of
does
that.
glue back good.
Yeah, it does. Get my activator and let's move my glue so I don't get activator on the bottle. There we go. Now it'll work. Yeah, it'll glue back real nice. I'll have to do a little hand sanding, but that's okay too. All right. Yeah, this little bushing on this end probably needs to be sanded down just a touch.
Got any painter's tape, Doug? I'd run a strip of painter's tape around that.
That's a good idea. Real good idea. Oh, me. Uh, here we go. Real good idea, dang. I probably would have thought about that when it flew off the next time.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
look out.
yeah, well, that's how we tend to do it, isn't it? We see it
That's
for other
right.
people before they see it themselves so often.
Yeah. That's just a way to conquer and overcome.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of like the Foster bit thing and starting
Yep.
off with your inch and going up by half an inch at a time. It's you just you lose that point. That's why it's there. It's to be the initial guide.
Support it.
Yeah.
Support.
All right. Let's see. I was going to change tools so we could try something different. Here's a half-inch skew. And see it It wants to grab a little bit more. All right. Sometimes when the half inch doesn't work, let's get the 1 inch. It's just as bad. It could be done though.
Finesse.
Don't,
Finesse.
yeah, don't be deterred by my inability.
Did you raise your tool rest up for it?
I never do.
Oh, okay.
Partly because my lathe is sitting 4 to 6 inches higher than anybody else's anyway. It's well above my elbow height. Let's go with the spindle gouge, the Soleil spindle gouge. It's definitely going to be better than the skew. Yeah, I had somebody one time. They went and got a new lathe, and they came over to my house. They said, "I want to see how high your lathe is." So, why do you want to see my lathe? And they told me they just got this new lathe and wanted to set it up the same way mine is. And I said, "Well, first off, what are you going to turn?" They were going to turn much smaller stuff, um, mostly spindle type work. At the time, when I set this lathe up, I was turning hollow forms, and my back was really beginning to give me a lot of problems. And so I raised it up. It's up as high as the legs will go. Then I put 4x4s under it. And so anyway, I'm used to this lathe being a higher, taller. Somebody well over 6 feet would enjoy my lathe.
You need to make yourself a platform, Doug.
I don't need one. I do just fine. I'm nowhere near as Emma Cook is under 5 feet, and she turns on a full size lathe. And when you
So
see
she
her
uses a
turn,
platform.
no, no, she does not. She
Hmm.
she's holding that thing up under her chin. Or she's holding her tools up, well up under her chin.
Yeah, she
It's
always
amazing.
looks like she's climbing on top of her lathe every time she's
Yeah,
turning. Yeah, I
yeah,
hear you.
yeah.
Hmm.
I thought she was using a platform
Okay
too.
then.
She would talk about how short she is, and I thought she used a platform, but she does not. I didn't quite get down to that piece of wood, but that's okay. It's doesn't need to be. Get this sanded up, and then we'll go to the next step. I won't even have to change it. We'll start at this one. All right. Now, told you all a while ago, showed you. It's leaving this, get it where you can see it good. It's leaving this corner that
Yeah, we got it.
goes all the way down on every one of these. There's 6 of those. So what I'm going to do to alleviate some of that, and you can use any tool you want to. You could go to hand sanding and carving at this point. You could get a Dremel out at this point. I'm going to take my my Easy Wood #1 hollower just because it's a small cutter, and I'm going to go in there and take away just some of that. and start to create this transition point. Get it where I can. I've got to see it first. All right. So I'm get my pencil here again. Right here, I'm down to this tube. I've still got the corner there, but it's gone. And this, I can't get it where you can see it. But between these two tubes, it's round right here, right in the center. Same here on this one and this one and this one. They're down to the tubes. So I need to turn that and get 4 more of those. Also, the whole thing. Got to use my pencil. There we go. All right, those two are done. Okay, turn it this way. I think you can probably already see once you've done 2 or 3 of these, they will get easier and easier, and you'll be able to knock them out. I'm sure, without having any cameras on or explaining to anybody, I am sure I can get to where I can knock these out in 15 minutes, maybe. There you can see where I'm getting that hollowed out between the two. I didn't quite go deep enough on that one. Let's do that one again. Should have looked before I took it out, but I didn't. Yeah, it's better. Not perfect, but it's better. Okay, we got that one and that one. And we are right. Okay, we're there on that one. And there's going to be some hand carving to do um, at some point. You just can't get it all. I'm only hitting 2 of these. The other 2 have already been hit. All right, looks like I have 1 more to go. Yeah, I got 1 more. No, I've done that one. Do, 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 do. Okay, so that is all that I can do. Stuff's falling. So I can get rid of that. There goes a tool. Ah, I heard Sue's voice. That's what happens when you leave your tools on the lathe bed. You're exactly
No,
right.
I would never tell you that because I'm guilty of that as well.
Yeah, I
That's
don't do it
Scott.
very
That's Scott
often.
Hampton. That's Scott Hampton that's been preaching that.
I don't do it most. I mean, I do it very seldom, but I do it every once in a while. Yeah, it's got to be sanded where that
Yes.
seam is there.
Do not lathe your tool chisels on the lathe bed.
Yeah, it does. It really makes it doesn't help a whole lot. So what I'll do is I'll take something like this, my Dremel. This is a little sanding burr. I've got loads of them. I've got the small sanding drum, the large sanding drum. Um, I've got a whole variety right here. That's a little carbide cutter. Matt has shown many of these in many of his demonstrations. Um, there's a little round, little ball burr, little tiny thing on that one. Um, just use whatever it takes to get in here and get these little things. Um, Gary even talked about sitting out in his backyard with his pocket knife. He got his launch. It was a nice afternoon, so he just sat out in the backyard in a lawn chair with his pocket knife and just whittled away on these what 8 little corners to get them gone and start smoothing them out. And then just taking some sandpaper rolled up around his finger and just going in between these things and just working them around. Something you could do sitting out in the 95-degree temperatures or like some of us had today, more like 70-degree temperatures. I think we were 70, 71 degrees here today for a high, but we have been hot. But all of that, especially if you have a softer wood, will sand up, uh, carve up just real nice. And then you might say, well, what do you got? You get get that sanded up. You put a little uh, lacquer, polyurethane, shellac, whatever. Put that on your coffee table, and your next guest that coming in, the first thing they're going to do when they sit down is pick that up. How in the world did you do that? Where did you get that? You didn't. No, you didn't do that. That's 3-axis turning. Is all it is. There's one axis. There's another axis. There's another axis. So 3-axis turning, and it works out. Yeah, as you see, works out really nice. Kind of interesting. In fact, it's not sanded up yet, but just for the sake of argument, this is some spray on polyacrylic. So it gives it brings out the color, makes it shine a little bit. And I'm sorry that didn't take any longer than it did, but
It's going to be purty on the coffee table.
it'll be nice. Once it's sanded up, I'll spend 15, 20 minutes probably with the Dremel wearing these 8 corners out. And then I'll get out these, what I'll probably do is get the little small, I've got a little small, it's a sanding thing. It goes in my like a sanding barrel. It goes in my drill press, about a 1/2 inch, and I'll get that and just use it by hand and go in between. I'll go do this one. I'll go all the way around this way, and I'll do all the way around this way, and then turn it and go like that for a while. Probably sit out on the porch swing and watch the birds eat what's left of my garden up. So there you have a knucklebone. For lack of anything better to call it, we'll call it a knucklebone.
Great demo, Doug.
Yeah.
Good job, Doug.
All right.
Anybody
Thank you.
have
Thanks, Doug.
Very
anybody
good.
have any
Thank you.
questions or anybody have any questions or comments on the process or doing any turning or doing anything beyond what Doug was explaining on carving out the 6 corners there?
You can definitely see all the way through it. So you see it's drilled all the way through.
So what are some of the places you could take this? Where would you go with this? I mean, you said just leaving it on the table as a conversation piece,
Right.
but I don't have any people over. You know what I mean? So,
Sure. We've talked a little bit about the bottle stoppers, taking those and taking them with you to some of the dinner parties that are coming up. Take one of these with you, especially if they have kids. Just throw it out on the table or throw it out on the floor for the kids to play with. And you might want to do it out of something a little stouter than
Yeah.
cedar.
Cedar.
Do something more like maple or oak, and it'll take a little longer to turn, uh, but it'll be a little stouter too. This you could that would crush in a heartbeat. Cedar is just not that stout a wood. It looks cool, but that's about it.
get enough CA glue in it, it'll hold up.
Well, yeah, you could do that if you had a bucket of it. Just duck it in there and pull it out and let it sit a while, and yeah, that would stiffen it up real good.
Ball and
Those
socket. Interesting. Okay.
again, I didn't take a lot of time with either one of these blanks, getting them ready to make sure they were perfect. So some of these legs are a little bit longer than others. There I go dropping it. It didn't break. That's a plus. Yeah, and I can almost
Was
reach it.
it? That's
Um,
because it fell in shavings.
You're
there's
gonna
not
have to
much.
send that,
I swept today,
you're
Billy.
gonna have to send that to me now, Doug, because everything hits the floor I get. Remember, I
she
got the
got the
other one.
she got that other one. Yep. Yeah.
It's mine
And
now.
this one did have that one crack or one split out. But that's just like I said, that's cedar. It's going to happen. I went a little deep right there. I went just a touch deep with that round cutter, but that'll sand right out. So uh, I'm stalling while I think about where I'd go with this, Matt. Um,
Uh,
you
you even got
you
you
could
got room
put
to throw it between centers and take some more off the knuckles. That would take that indentation from the carbide out.
maybe, yeah. I was just thought too, you could if you go on the bias here and drill a hole straight in and put a stem on it so it stood up on a stem. Change cameras and it'll
Some
make a little better sense.
something else, something else you could do. You've got your chucking points there with the corners. You could mount those corners between centers and further turn each of those unions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey, let's do it. Hey, let's
You could
do
go.
that.
Where's my
Feel like
thing?
doing that? Experiment here.
Let's see. I have to do. Oh, I know what I can do. Okay. Yeah, don't really have. Here's what I'll have to do. Well,
Hey,
that's what
Doug, we
I'll
got a
do.
question about drilling the holes.
Yeah,
When you drilled them, did you drill them halfway through or did you drill them all the way through?
I drilled as far as my drill bit would go,
Okay.
it was virtually all the way through. It wasn't all the way,
Okay.
but almost.
It was close. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then I could come back. It went far enough that the point of the drill bit was sticking out. I was using a paddle bit, and so that little center point was poking out, and so I could use that as my reference when I turned it over.
Yeah. Good question. Thank you.
Hey, Doug, would you have to drill the holes in it?
Would you have
Yeah.
to? No, no, you wouldn't have to. You could
Could you
turn it
turn it,
completely. Yeah, completely between centers.
yeah, between a dead center and a live center?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It'd be less likely to break out.
Put little
Okay.
tenons on your cube. You could Forstner bit it all on the
Yeah.
lathe.
No, Dane, you can't do that. You can't
No?
get those little. No, there's not enough room. Go back to overhead, and you can see. It's a good thought, but See, I hit that one. If I move over, I'm going to be square in the middle of that one. So no, it was a good thought.
Yeah.
Real good thought. But you know, like Gary said, like I said a while ago, just take some relaxing time and just nibble away, whether with a pocket knife or use a Dremel. I don't have a powered or a battery powered Dremel. Mine's corded, so I don't have a choice on that. I sit down here in the shop. I pull my little shop stool over and just do one at a time, and I'll get around and okay, I need to go a little further here and a little further there, or maybe this other tool would work a little better. Um,
But you're not going out in the backyard and doing it.
I could, well, I could with an extension cord. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I've got extension cords. I could do that easily. In fact, my porch swing is on my in my carport looking out over the backyard, and I've got an extension cord run to it now that I'd use when I smoke my briskets and what have you.
Looks like a fidget now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's yeah. I'm getting the last of the
Keep
shavings
playing with it. It's a
out of the
fidget.
inside.
Like we were talking before, you could put the Dremel in a vise and then you just have to hold the piece. I
Yeah,
found that
yeah.
much more accurate.
Sure, sure.
Also, all you have three different planes of this. I mean, all the spigots are the same. You could have three different planes of that. So the spigots would be long on one end, short on the other. So
Oh yeah.
all three of those could be set on different planes.
And Jim, something that you just made me go to my brain. I have seen these things or something similar where instead of being straight across,
Yeah,
these were on an angle,
yeah, they could be very well. Yes,
which would put you four,
yeah.
six. You
You
could
could
have
do
seven. You could have seven axes on that.
yes, yeah, yes, you could.
Wow. That somebody said. I said something about that bowl that I showed you a while ago. I was just cleaning that bark inclusion out, causing that hole, and somebody said, "You don't want to be putting holes in a bowl. That it's a path to insanity." This could be a path to insanity real quick.
Yes, it could. I don't know what you do with it when you get it done, but anyway.
It's yeah, exactly.
It's a
Uh,
it's a gee
it's
whiz turning. That's all
You,
it is.
you
yeah,
got it.
yeah, and it's something that will cause people to say, "Hey, how in the world?" When, as you just saw, it wasn't that hard. Not that hard at all.
Art. Piece of art for the coffee table.
Yeah, the hemispheres, is that how you say it? The little they end up being round. They don't always look like they'll roll, but they will. Um, you turn them, cut them, reglue them after you turn that, and um, yeah, Heather did some of them. She did a whole series of them. Anyway, though, things like that where people look at them and say, "Huh?" um, every once in a while, it's good to have one of those kind of projects. And that's what that
Mhm.
is. It's just one of those, huh? Almost like a ribbons ribbon finial.
Right.
Because I don't know anybody that would turn a ribbon finial. That's just crazy. I don't know how many Matt's turned. I've turned a dozen or so of them myself.
Yeah, I have at least 15 of them sitting in my shop in a
Yeah,
box. So yeah,
I did
which
one.
that's
there
why
you
I've got
go.
that's why I've got that. That's a little saw blade. I need a bigger saw
Yes.
blade. Need the bigger
I
one.
I will send you a link, Doug. I found some on
Oh,
Amazon
okay.
that work
Okay.
really well.
Good, good, good. Yeah. That little one is there's a couple of places where it's just not quite long enough.
Yeah, and if you
All
leave
right.
things a little too thick, you can't get in there. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway,
Nice demo.
so there you go. One Knucklebone for whatever reason you want to turn one. There it is. Have any questions? Feel free to send me a note and I'll be glad to answer you.
Hey, hey, Doug,
Yes, sir.
if you lay that flat flat on the table, you can have 3 points pointing up. You could put flower buds in it.
Okay, hang on. I'm getting
Good
a board
idea.
over here. Yes, you're
Yeah,
gonna
you
have yes, you're
three
gonna have
flower,
3 up.
put three
Three.
flower beds in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
If you did artificials with the wire in the stem, you could have them go all the way through and bend so they're going up. That'd be pretty cool.
You
Yeah.
can set a bowl on top of it. It can be a
Yeah,
base for a bowl.
yeah. I just
Around,
happen to have a bowl right here close.
especially a round bottom bowl. Round bottom bowl would sit in there real well.
Nice display stand for a sphere, a ball.
There we go.
Nice idea.
Yes, a sphere.
That's
I've
a
got
great idea. Note
yeah,
to self.
yeah, absolutely. There's your sphere stands. That's something better than the cone with a little dish on the very top, which is what I've
It
done.
is. It totally is.
Yeah, yeah.